भारत अपने किसानों के, पशुपालकों के और मछुआरे भाई बहनों के हितों के साथ समझौता नहीं करेगा।
Why are you singling India out for these additional sanctions?
It's only been 8 hours. You're going to see a lot more. You're going to see so much secondary sanctions. Yes, ma'am.
और मैं जानता हूं व्यक्तिगत रूप से मुझे बहुत बड़ी कीमत चुकानी पड़ेगी, लेकिन मैं इसके लिए तैयार हूं।
The American President Donald Trump, it would be safe to say, has transformed the American presidency. Whether that's for the better or worse is a judgment that time will deliver. But here you have someone who gets into an open altercation with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zilinski in the White House.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
Cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. It's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
He does not mince his words, has a very politically incorrect approach to his speech. In fact, even when Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the United States in February this year, Trump was open about what he believed were high tariffs being imposed by India on American exports.
Anywhere in the world, they've been very strong on tariffs, and I don't blame them necessarily, but it's a different way of doing business. It's very hard to sell into India because they have trade barriers, very strong tariffs. We are right now a reciprocal nation. We are going to, if it's India or if it's somebody else with low tariffs, we're going to have the same. We're going to have whatever India charges, we're charging them. Whatever another country charges, we're charging them. So it's called reciprocal, which I think is a very fair way. When this isn't India, this is among a lot of nations. The European Union is very difficult for us, very, very difficult. They tax our companies at levels that nobody's ever seen before. They take advantage of a lot of things, so we're not happy about that. China, of course, is terrible, and we have to do that just as a mechanism of fairness.
Sure enough, it was that very month that Trump began his tariff war, if he could call it that. His primary concern is what he believes are unfavorable terms of trade for the United States with many countries, among other reasons. For example, with India, Trump has repeatedly highlighted the trade deficit that America has, and bridging this gap is his priority.
We'll soon impose reciprocal tariffs because that means they charge us, we charge them. It's very simple. Whatever a company or a country such as, let's say, India or China or any of them, whatever they charge, we want to be fair. So reciprocal. Reciprocal meaning they charge us, we charge them. We haven't done that. We've never done that. We were getting ready to do it until COVID hit. We had the greatest economy in the history of the world, and we were just getting started. But the tariffing is going to be very interesting. Howard's going to be in charge of it, and I think you're going to see jobs and money flowing into the country like never has been seen before.
Trump began his tariff onslaught in February with 25% tariffs on Mexican and a significant number of Canadian imports to the United States. He also imposed a 10% tariff on goods from China back then, but followed up with a freeze on the decision on Mexico and Canada for a period of 1 month. But let's first talk about India. There are two reasons why India has been on Trump's radar. The first is the trade surplus that India enjoys with the United States. The total value of trade between India and the US stood at US dollars $212.3 billion in 2024, an increase of 8.3% from the previous year. The total value of goods trade was approximately $128.9 billion US dollars, and India enjoyed a surplus of $45.8 billion US dollars. The total value of services trade was approximately 83.4 billion American dollars, and here the United States enjoyed a minor trade surplus of 102 million US dollars. It's the massive goods trade surplus that India enjoys that is of primary concern to Donald Trump.
I see this as a very serious possibility for India, but not just India. Indeed, one of the risks of this entire approach is that the U.S. isolates itself and that trading alliances are built between Europe and China, between India and China, from the Asian economies, excluding the United States into Europe in general. So I think this is a risk that the administration underestimates. They have this notion that somehow countries will remain compelled to trade with the United States in the way they were before and will simply put up with the tariffs. I don't see that as a realistic outlook. The global economy can reshape itself. It's done it many times in the past and will do so in the future. India will be part of that reshaping if we continue this way.
In the entire world, in large economy, only Indian economy is standing at 6.5 to 7% GDP growth and less than 3% inflation. So I can say this is a brightening star in the global sky, that is the Indian economy. And people who are making absurd comments about Indian economy that it is dead, I think they are mentally dead. When you are saying one of the most vibrant economy of the world and the most vibrant economy in the larger economy, if you are making such kind of comments, I think either you don't understand the economic principles or your mental status is not to comment on whether someone is dead or alive because you are mentally dead.
But there's another dimension to the entire issue, and this is purely geopolitical in nature. For a long time now, Donald Trump has been unable to mediate a solution to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. At one stage, he appeared confident of brokering a truce between the two countries, but that has simply not happened. What's also irked him is the fact that India, particularly since the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war in 2022, has continued to buy large quantities of oil from Russia. India, which was once largely dependent on the Middle East for its oil imports, has now diversified its supply sources, and Russia in 2025 has made up for almost 36% of its oil imports.
Do you still plan to follow through on your threat to impose 100% tariffs on all countries that purchase Russian energy, including China?
Well, I never said a percentage, but we'll be doing quite a bit of that. We'll see what happens over the next fairly short period of time. But we'll see what happens. Yep. You know, they have a meeting tomorrow. We have a meeting with Russia tomorrow. We're going to see what happens. We'll make that determination at that time.
Our ties with any country, or all the ties that we have with various countries, they stand on their own merit, and they should not be seen from the prism of a third country. As far as India-Russia relations are concerned, we have a steady and time-tested partnership.
Interestingly, during the Joe Biden administration, America is known to have encouraged India to buy Russian oil to keep the global prices of oil down. But now, under a new dispensation under Trump, America has chosen a diametrically opposite approach.
And we take the smaller victories, like actually they bought Russian oil because we wanted somebody to buy Russian oil at a price cap. That was not a violation or anything. It was actually the design of the policy because as a commodity, we didn't want oil prices going up. And they fulfilled that. During G20, they were able to take Russia to the side and say, take or leave this statement, which was critical about Ukraine. It just took the word Russia out, but it was very clear. And we were able to deliver Europe. They were able to deliver Russia. That boxed in China. And it showed, again, this multiplicative relationship when we get together. So it's complicated. You need to know history. You need to come in not in a kind of condescending way. But I think once you do that, it's a very loyal relationship. And I would say the people-to-people stuff, given that everybody who's in power there has family, has studied, has served in the United States by and large, it's a real soft or smart power advantage.
On the 6th of August this year, Donald Trump imposed an additional 25% tariff over and above the existing 25% that had been announced by him on the 30th of July. The additional 25% tariff, which can be interpreted as Trump's penalty on India for importing oil from Russia, kicks in from the 27th of August. But there are multiple layers to American hypocrisy here. First, it perceives Indian imports of crude oil from Russia as a threat, but has absolutely no issues whatsoever importing uranium and fertilizers, among other products, from Russia. American imports from Russia grew 23% year on year to $2.1 billion between January and May this year. This includes an increase in imports of palladium to the tune of 37%, uranium with 28%, and fertilizers with 21%. In 2024, the value of fertilizer imports from Russia in the United States stood at approximately $1.1 billion. For palladium, it was $878 million, and uranium stood at $624 million, as well as aircraft engine parts made up for approximately $75 million.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
India says that the U.S. imports Russian uranium, chemicals, fertilizers, while criticizing their energy imports. Your response to that, sir?
I don't know anything about it. I'd have to check, but we'll get back to you on that. Yeah, please.
On the sanctions, we have taken note of the sanctions and we are looking into it. So, on our energy sourcing requirements, you are aware of our broad approach that we look at what is there available in the markets, what is there on offer, and also what is the prevailing global situation or circumstances.
The Indian government has responded strongly. It has highlighted how the United States had earlier encouraged India to buy Russian oil and has also reminded the US about how India is being singled out. And India is indeed being singled out. Let's explain why. India will be at the receiving end of almost 50% tariffs on its exports to the United States, when between 2022 and 2025, its share of coal imports from Russia stood at only 19%, while China's number stands at 44%. As far as LNG is concerned, the EU purchased 51% of it from Russia in the same period, and China at 21%, and Japan at 18%. As far as pipeline gas is concerned, the European Union purchased 37% from Russia and China at 30%. And yet, India was being subjected to 50% tariffs, while American tariffs on China stood at 30% and the EU at around 15%.
She asks tough questions like no other journalist.
The Dreamliners are suddenly the bad boys in the fleet.
Textiles, gems and jewelry, shrimp or fisheries, leather and footwear, chemicals, and also electrical and mechanical machinery. The worry is that this will severely affect India's export competitiveness in the American market, essentially increasing the prices of Indian exports to the US, making it more expensive for the American consumer.
All the sectors except those which are not affected by the tariff, which means pharmaceutical, smartphone, petroleum products, steel, aluminum, copper. Rest of all the products will be hit. The biggest worry is for the labor-intensive sectors like apparel, textile, footwear, in terms of the jobs which they are providing. So that's why I'm saying that all the sectors which are put under 25% additional tariff will be hit, but the worst concern is with regard to the employment-intensive sectors of our exports.
Well, the general proposition of imposing tariffs, which now amount to roughly 350 billion American dollars at an annual rate, I think is a big policy mistake for the Trump administration. It's something that, in the end, will lead to higher prices in the United States, and we've had inflation problems, so it'll lead to slower growth, and the labor market's quite weak at the moment, and it will, in fact, isolate the United States in the global trading alliances. So I'm not a big supporter of this particular policy.
What about the overall impact on the Indian economy? One estimate claims that India's economic growth could slow down to 6% in 2025-26, and another claims that our fuel bill could go up by an additional $9 billion if we are arm twisted into stop purchasing Russian oil, though that may be unlikely.
I think India's dependence on US is not very high. We want a very cordial business relationship with US, but not at dictatorial terms. I will convey my feelings to your viewers that we want America to be our friend, but Russia is our brother.
The US president could not answer their importing uranium and other things to US, which he was not aware. And there are other countries who are getting oil from Russia and all other things. They're dealing with this one. somewhere this act of US President is not in the large interest of the world. Not only the US economy will have a setback by doing all these crazy things, the world economy will go down.
If India is buying Russian oil, which is basically apparently cheaper and more economical, who's getting the benefit of it? Is the ordinary Indian getting the benefit of cheaper oil? I don't think so. Have the prices come down? The petrol and diesel prices, who is benefiting it? This is something that the government has to answer. Now, some billionaires get benefited, and then the country gets punished by way of 50% tariffs. I don't know what kind of economics, what kind of foreign policy this is. Because end of the day, if you look at it, Miga plus Maga was supposed to be mega. What happened to the Dosti? What happened to the whole Bonhomie? Our humble request to the Prime Minister and the Government of India is, please respond.
India is keeping its options open. The Indian National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval, was in Moscow this week. The Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, is expected to visit China for the SCO summit, where he is likely to meet the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Has America's intransigence on tariffs created a situation where India will now be compelled to make a choice and pursue economic opportunities on a greater scale with Russia, but also our geopolitical rival, China? Not long after the announcement made by President Trump, Prime Minister Modi also spoke to the Brazilian President Lula da Silva about deepening cooperation. After all, even Brazil has been slapped with 50% tariffs. And Prime Minister Modi has clearly said that the interests of India's farmers will not be compromised, even if he has to pay a personal cost. The message to America clearly is that India will not make compromises when it comes to agriculture or dairy, among other sensitive issues.
भारत अपने किसानों के, पशुपालकों के और मछुआरे भाई बहनों के हितों के साथ कभी भी समझौता नहीं करेगा। और मैं जानता हूं, व्यक्तिगत रूप से मुझे बहुत बड़ी कीमत चुकानी पड़ेगी, लेकिन मैं इसके लिए तैयार हूं। मेरे देश के किसानों के लिए, मेरे देश के मछुआरों के लिए, मेरे देश के पशुपालकों के लिए आज भारत तैयार है।
What's the way forward? A trade team from the United States is expected to visit India on the 25th of August, which gives a 2-day window ahead of the August 27 deadline for the imposition of the additional 25% tariff. One suggestion that has come through is for India to undertake reforms domestically to become a more competitive market.
We have a strong Prime Minister, smart Prime Minister. Prime Minister understands what is happening. I don't think he needs advice by all these juveniles and other people, immature people in the opposition who say, bash to a Trump, do this, do that. I don't think he needs advice because they don't know how to run a country. They're just trying to create trouble and create anarchy. I mean, they're not serious. They don't understand what is happening. They're devoid of any diplomatic intelligence. So we just have to ignore them. I mean, they don't understand. You see, when you deal with big issues like that, you have to bid your time.
In fact, the problem with Mr. Trump is that he is not providing any stability. Even assuming that government comes forward and provide, for example, 15 to 20% of the support, there is no guarantee that tomorrow he will not increase the tariff by 15 to 20%. So I think that's a bigger worry for us. Once we are sure that this is the regime in which we have to work, probably problem to a large extent can be addressed. But he has been so unpredictable that I'm not sure that tomorrow he brings the issue of BRICS currency, impose any other tariff. So that's why at this point of time it's a very difficult situation, but at the same time we would like that communication line should be open, the negotiation should be on track, because any breakthrough is possible only through the negotiations.
Will the Trump tariff war now prompt a realignment of India's priorities? How will it impact the larger Indo-American relationship? Trump's repeated insistence that he brokered the ceasefire between India and Pakistan after Operation Sindoor, despite India's repeated denials, has also not gone down well. America's increasing closeness to Pakistan is also a worrying development. But there are those who believe that the tariff war, even if it is being done to appease the MAGA lobby in America, will hurt Donald Trump.
I think there are many Republicans who are quietly quite unhappy with the president's approach on international trade, don't like the tariffs, which are in the end simply higher taxes and not something they would generally support. And they have kept quiet for the moment. He was elected in a very popular fashion. Newly elected presidents in their first year in office get a lot of freedom to pursue their policies. But if, in fact, this turns out to be an approach that yields poor economic results, that will endanger their reelection next fall. And so we'll quickly see Republicans depart from the president, begin to criticize him, and his support will wane. So I think everything really revolves on how the U.S. economy proceeds over the second half of 2025.
There are also those who believe that any retaliatory tariffs from the Indian side at this juncture would be unwise.
Definitely looking into the other market is part of de-risking a strategy of the exporters, and tariff war has given a very boost to that. But please bear in mind that you cannot move to the other market overnight. So in the short term, we have to be ready to take some hit. In medium to long term, exporters will definitely looking into the alternative market. Government has worked out some of the very vibrant FTAs also. For example, with UAE and Australia, we need to further utilize that because our utilization level is not optimum in these markets. UK will also be open once the UK Parliament approves that. There are talks about the early harvest in EU also. So we are looking into diversification, and probably in medium to short term, we will be able to manage. The problem is medium to long term, we will be able to manage. The problem is the short term, because in short term, we have to be ready. Some kind of difficulties will remain for the export sector. In some of the segments, some of the volume may move to the domestic market because we have a vibrant domestic market also. But overall, there will be a challenging time for exporters in the short term.
As they say, we are headed for interesting times.
She asks